African Americans made up about 12 to 13% of the U.S. population during the Vietnam War, but they accounted for about 7,200 of the roughly 58,220 U.S. military deaths, around 12.5% of all combat deaths. In the early years of the war, 1965 to 1967, African Americans were overrepresented in combat roles, making up nearly 20% of combat deaths. However, after public pressure and advocacy, changes in military policies helped reduce this disparity, bringing the percentage of black casualties more in line with their proportion of the U.S. population by the later years of the war. Several policy changes helped address the disproportionate number of African American combat deaths in the Vietnam War. Early in the war, African Americans were disproportionately assigned to frontline combat units, particularly in the Army and Marine Corps. After civil rights leaders and organizations, such as the NAACP and Congress of Racial Equality, protested, the military began reallocating black soldiers to non-combat roles in logistics, support, and administrative positions. Review of Draft and Assignment Procedures, 1966 to 1967. The Selective Service System had been disproportionately drafting African Americans, many of whom came from lower-income backgrounds with fewer deferment opportunities, such as college exemptions. Reforms aimed to make draft selection more equitable by reducing local draft board bias. Equal Opportunity Policies in the Military, 1969 to 1970. The Department of Defense increased efforts to diversify leadership by promoting more African Americans to officer ranks and leadership positions, giving them a greater say in assignments and reducing the likelihood of bias in combat placement. Prominent figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke out against the Vietnam War, highlighting racial disparities. This, along with reports from journalists and veterans, pressured the military and government to address racial imbalances and casualties. By the early 1970s, these efforts helped lower the percentage of African American combat deaths to a level more proportionate to their overall representation in the U.S. military.